misinformation, disinformation, and us. Yes, we, the Nigerian citizens. Where do we draw the lines, and how do you discern what information you're consuming is real, or fake, or altered? Developments in the country yet again have caused us to look at this. Is artificial intelligence taking away our ability for critical thinking? Who controls the narratives, and at what cost? These are the questions we'll be answering and more in the course of the program. My name is Leah Babatunde, and you're welcome to the Policy with Leah. As always, we start the business of the day from the trends table.
The Senate has approved President Bola Tinubu's request to raise 1.15 trillion naira from the domestic debt market to bridge the funding gap in the 2025 budget. The approval followed the presentation and consideration of the report of the Senate Committee on Local Foreign Debt chaired by Senator Iyinolakan. In its report, the committee recommended the Senate's approval of the additional borrowing to cover the 14.1 trillion naira deficit in the 2025 Appropriation Act, which increased following a review of the budget size. The federal government has put on hold the implementation of the earlier announced 15% duty on imported petroleum diesel. This was announced in a statement by the Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority (NMDPRA), signed by its Director of Public Affairs Department, Judge Yinka. NMDPRA disclosed that the implementation of the 15% import duty on imported premium motor spirits and diesel is no longer in view, and assured the public that there is adequate supply of petroleum products in the country within the acceptable national sufficiency threshold during the spec demand period. The Presidential Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms Committee has unveiled Nigeria's new capital gains tax (CGT) framework designed to promote fairness, reduce investment risks, and encourage long-term participation in the capital market. The reform also introduces broader compliance obligations. Investors must maintain detailed record of acquisition costs, sales proceeds, and allowable expenses, while brokers and exchange will need to verify deductions such as transactions fee, margin interest, and foreign exchange losses. The National Pension Commission is targeting to bring in as much as 80 million informal sector workers into Nigeria's retirement savings system. Director General of the Commission, MS Oloworanan, in a message to the annual conference of the Pension Correspondent Association of Nigeria, said the revamped micro-pension framework is central to closing the country's widening pension gap.
Today, we reaffirm our commitment to ensuring that every Nigerian, whether formally employed or not, has the opportunity for a secure and dignified old age.
A mature and inclusive pension system is a credit to any modern society. It reduces old age poverty, it stabilizes household finances, and it strengthens national resilience.
We commend the National Pension Commission and all operators for the ongoing reforms and initiative aimed at expanding pension coverage under the Personal Pension Plan (PPP), formerly called Micro Pension Plan. However, we recognize that much remains to be done, especially in the areas of awareness, rebuilding trust, technology-driven enrollment, and policy incentive.
The redesigned scheme, now operating as the Personnel Pension Plan, was introduced to address the limitations that hindered the uptake of the Micro Pension Plan learned in 2019.
Nigeria's policy on disinformation involves a combination of legal measures, regulatory frameworks, and media initiatives. Key elements include provisions in the Criminal Code Act against defamation and false news, the establishment of regulatory agencies like NITDA and the National Broadcasting Commission, that's the NBC, and the promotion of media literacy and fact-checking through media partnerships. However, concerns on false information have been made more glaring in recent times as a lot of disinformation and misinformation have pervaded the cyberspace. Yinka Iyinolakan is a Nigerian social innovator and founder of the Center for the Digitization of Indigenous African Languages, CIDAL, and he joins me to throw light on some of these issues. It's nice to have you join me, Yinka, for this conversation.
It's a pleasure being here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Are we still at CIDAL? Are we still an AI startup, or we've gotten to that level of solidity?
Oh, we've made a lot of progress. We're scaling up on three facets. AI is rooted in three major pillars. It's rooted in talent, it's rooted in data sets, and in computing. And we're making progress in all of that and starting to serve Nigerian businesses and Nigerian people.
I wish you well on that path. And of course, let me just come home to the issue at stake and now, which is the rise of artificial intelligence that has already been solving problems and with greater opportunities out there for those who are engaging in it. And of course, we cannot run away from it. But then all this is coming at a cost, as we have also seen and have noted that earlier. So my major question will be, who is the gatekeeper for the usage in the cyberspace? Who gatekeeps for a country like Nigeria?
That's an interesting question. Gatekeeping AI is a shared responsibility, amongst developers, the people who build the AI models, the government, the agencies, the social media platforms. So it's a shared responsibility. Obviously, the government need to play a huge role in trying to regulate, but at the same time not stifling innovation. So it's a chicken and egg approach where you want to strike a healthy balance. But gatekeeping is a shared responsibility, and the shared responsibility starts with education, which is educating people constantly. I'll give you an example. If you are a Facebook user, but you never really used Instagram or Snapchat, you would sometimes struggle with TikTok. But what that means is that if you don't go with the times and go with the innovation, at least test it out, you would use one perspective to view all types of technology. So, educating ourselves, immersing ourselves in AI, or cautiously, while we try to find ways that we can use it productively, but also that we can protect our people is very, very major. And the time is now. It's not tomorrow, it's now.
Okay, thankfully you're on that path, and I would still hold you in that because in recent time we've seen a flurry of articles and videos, and you just name it, of course. And for people like me and you, we can identify them and know that either this is true or this is not true. So let's have a sense of understanding now. These kinds of content that are altered, is it mischief or lack of knowledge on how to use them?
It's both. Usually, even in the era of print media and even till today, misinformation and false content arises from, intentional mischief. But for some people, it's also a lack of awareness, not knowing enough. And as people, we have a tendency of having strong opinions even about topics that we don't know enough about. So, it's both sides, but the challenge with this technology in our hands is it's bigger than anything we've ever seen before, and it's rapidly expanding, which means that even with people who, lack awareness and are seeking to empower and enable themselves to know more, there can still be gaps in their knowledge. But what we must tackle is the mischief, the people who have exacerbated, certain mischief with mobile phones, social media, having AI in their hands, they can even do so much more. But that does not mean we should restrict AI. That means that it's up to us developers and up to and relating and liaising with the government to find ways that we can curb this mischief and we can have identifiable, code in identifiable data sets in what we are building so that we can find these mischief makers. But if you look at things with video content, with deep fake and image content. It's up to us as well to be able to label things that are AI so that when it's posted into the public space, the layman and the user can easily identify the AI and then have the discerning spirit to then say, hey, is this what we want to do or what we don't want to, what we want to believe or what we don't want to believe. Finally, you'll notice with platforms like X, formerly called Twitter, there are things like community notes. You might see it on Facebook sometimes. But here's the thing. Community notes can also be mischief if there's a large group of people who want to, sway the opinion of the public, it can be mischief. So it's an ongoing conversation. There is no El Dorado. The fourth estate, the media also plays a huge role in being able to, to moderate this and to manage this as we continue to grow the space in artificial intelligence.
Okay, so for the layman, how do you identify what is real and what is fake? What are those key elements to look out for?
Very difficult. So I'll give you some examples. In text, text generation is very hard to identify. For example, if some mischief makers in the past have done scams by trying to replicate the domain name of banks, so say for example, Bank X, their website is bankxo.com. They can write it as XO, but the O has a little dot under, and they can get that domain and do mischief with it. So in text generation, it's about putting some things that the layman's eye cannot see, but a machine can identify to be able to say, hey, this content was generated with AI. And that can happen with photos, with text, with videos. Also, if you see platforms like Sora, which is built by OpenAI, or VO3, which is built by Google, you will see that sometimes when you generate videos with it, you will see a watermark on the right-hand corner or top corner that says VO3. That means that's a way to identify that as AI. But what if somebody is skilled enough to remove those watermarks? How are you going to know? So it's about being able to discern, a few things. For example, right now, if you look at AI photos, look closely at the nails, look closely at the teeth. It's maybe in 1 year, it will be hard to discern, but right now, those are the things that you can use to spot. And also, humans are not perfect. No human in the world is perfect. So, if you look closely, you'll be able to, when you see over perfection, is either a filter or AI or both. So, there is just a discerning eye, and the way to discern is to constantly, you know, carry yourself along with these things, monitor it so that you'll be able to have a discerning eye. Kind of like how a parent is able to monitor his child's behavior and attitude. If you look at AI as a growing child in this space, if you monitor it closely, then you'll be aware of the change in algorithms and change in times and have a keen eye to be able to discern all of these changes.
I'm glad you mentioned the watermarks and all, but we've also seen that yes, when you are on the app, you get those prompts that tells you to identify if this content is AI or not. But in the messages, you don't get to see that. Like a typical WhatsApp, for instance, you find that a lot of the older generation, some of them aren't exposed to the AI world or to a large extent to what the cyberspace holds. And then you see a lot of this falsehood being shared. And it's such a difficult task convincing them that these things actually aren't true. How do we address this concern?
So, platforms like WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal present a unique challenge because they are supposed to be private messaging apps. That means that there are lots of encryptions on these platforms, and based on the encryptions, you know, a publicly available tool that is supposed to be able to detect AI might not be able to access it, right? You've seen things that Meta, the company that creates, Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp has done, which is when you're trying to forward a message to a large number of people, they reduce the number of people you're able to send to at once. That's a way that they are trying to moderate, but there is no perfect situation at the moment. But, these companies have invested heavily into like algorithms that can help detect AI, and they're constantly doing it. They have like, many of these companies employ 20, 30,000 people. who are very smart people who are trying to find ways to detect and identify these things for users. It's an ongoing conversation, ongoing research, and I believe in the next 6 months to 1 year to 2 years, the ways that these platforms are self-regulating will continue to improve, even as mischief makers continue to find ways to break the algorithms and find the loopholes. They will continue to catch up and try to find ways to mitigate all of these challenges that exist, especially with our older ones who sometimes might not have the discerning eye because they are technology migrants. They are not technology natives. They were born in an era where, you know, televisions look like cupboards. No offense, but it's just the truth. I was born somewhat in that era as well. And we go to a moment where you can generate knowledge in 3 seconds. Think about that transition. So it's a very, very interesting problem to have so that we can find ways to solve it. But all we can tell the people around us who are older and who are not technology natives is every information you find, ask yourself an extra question whether this is true or this is built for mischief. And I think that's what we all have to teach and educate people around us to do.
Okay. So although you've tilted towards the question I'm meant to ask, but I will still ask it again. Are the social media platforms doing enough to protect users from falsehood?
The answer is no, not enough. So much more can be done. But you have to understand that these companies are private entities. Obviously they have regulators, but they're private entities and they help maintain your privacy because they're private entities. And so they're caught in the middle sometimes of ensuring privacy and ensuring like the dynamism of technology and also their responsibility to society. So society must put pressure on them, civil society, the media, and other groups must put pressure on them and work with them to find ways to modify and to constantly iterate these platforms so that they can protect people more. They've done a lot has been done over the years, but still so much more can be done in the coming years. But right now, the answer is no. There's still so much to be done. And they need to engage people like you, madam, and a lot more people who, understand what real people feel and be able to modify these platforms to serve the people that they're supposed to serve. One more thing is that regulations vary across countries and across continents, sometimes even across the communities within a country. So one must in this era be specific about what is needed from place to space. And it is not the company that would go do the research to find out. Sometimes it is us that will reach out to them and give them the feedback on how they can improve.
Okay, so what should the regulators in our climb now in Nigeria be doing to curb this trend?
Ooh, so much, so much. There needs to be an AI policy. Fortunately, I was part of a group of people who, the government brought together to talk and deliberate on the strategy, AI strategy for the country. Especially in the continent that we operate in, government has a lot of power, and in with much power comes responsibility, right? So they must support and establish agencies that are just purely fact-checking agencies, with skilled people, not bureaucrats, skilled people who can look out. There's like the FCCPC, which is consumer protection. There has to be something like that for digital tools and the digital economy, right? Also, more intervention in AI ethics in the companies building these things to push and promote responsible AI. But most importantly, for people like us who are developers and private entities building AI tools, we also don't want over-regulation. So they must make sure that we're in the room when making these regulations because while trying to solve one person's problem or a small sample size problem, you might create a regulation that kills the whole system and kills scale for businesses like us looking to solve like some of the biggest problems that have always plagued us on the continent. So, it's about weighing what's more important. Yeah. Do we want to protect one, two, three people, and that's ethics, It's like the railroads. Do we want to protect one, two, three people on a certain rail track, or we want to be able to protect 20 million people on the other rail track? And sometimes the one, two, three people on the left side might be more powerful than the 20 million people. Let me tell you, let me slightly explain further what I mean by the 20 million people. You think about like a continent like ours is mostly agrarian and farmers. Farmers who know a lot but have not been able to transfer information and have not had access to markets and have not been able to scale from smallholder farmers to big ones. Isn't there an opportunity for us to use AI that speaks Hausa, Igbo, Yoruba, Swahili, so that the farmers can now finally have access to banking, to information, to healthcare, to markets? That's the opportunity that AI presents. But if we overregulate it, people like us will not be able to build that. So we'll not be able to solve, a big problem that has existed for 200 years just because we want to protect somebody who was slandered online. So, we have to know how we regulate. But while we're trying to regulate and protect people, we must not overregulate because this technology has the capacity to help us take a quantum leap. Remember what GSM did for us on the continent? We skipped home landlines, home fax machines that many people in other countries used for years. We jumped and we skipped into this era that has brought up companies like Flutter with Money Point just because of cell phones. We must not now stifle technology that would prevent us from that very quantum leap that can solve our major problems on the continent. And that's why dialogue. You notice dialogue is very important in policy formulation, and I hope that the government and the agencies continue to keep that in mind.
Absolutely. I must sincerely thank you, Mr. Yinka, for making our time for this conversation and for sharing these insights with me.
Thank you for having me. Please have me back anytime. Always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I will definitely do that. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you.
And of course, we move to our education segment, Simplify These. From there, we take you to the local commodities markets. And that's the much we can take on this episode of the program. Don't forget that for market details and more, you can always log on to our sister website. It is www.marketnigeriatv.com. And of course, this episode and every other one is available on YouTube on our channel. It is at Saban Media Services. You can also watch The Policy with Leah on our partner stations, Kaftan TV, Global TV Nigeria, and KSMC News. And don't forget that Building Nigeria, it's a duty that lies in the hands of all citizens. So play your part. Be safe out there, and God bless Nigeria.